If you are new to birding, it can certainly be intimidating. There are so many different kinds of birds. However, if you look at it as kind of like a mystery to solve or a puzzle to solve where there are clues which will help you, you can start to notice a variety of different aspects of the birds which can help you start to narrow down the field of possibilities. And so you would like to try to focus on the size and shape of the bird. Obviously, its color can help you, but not only the color, but any distinctive features, such as any white spots or any odd things like a long tail feather or a band around its neck. The behavior of a bird, the habitat that you're seeing it in, the season that you're seeing it in, all of these can help you narrow down. So you're not looking at all of the possible birds, but you've narrowed it now down to 5 or to 3 or to 2, making it much easier to identify the bird. So while waterfowl are a big group, there are subgroups. So for example, some are swans. These are very large, much larger than ducks and larger than geese. They have very long necks. They have white bodies in our area, and I'm speaking to those who would be bird watching in the Northeast US, but I'm trying to introduce strategies which would be helpful for anyone. Once you recognize as a bird as a swan because of these features, now you have a much smaller set of birds to distinguish between. So for example, a swan which had an orange bill and was present all year round, you would say, that's a mute swan. Whereas one which had a black bill that you might only see during migration time, that would be a tundra swan. If you noticed that the species of waterfowl you were looking at was larger than a duck, but didn't fit the characteristics of a swan, you might say, which type of goose am I looking at? And now you're only looking at a handful of species, and it might be easy to distinguish between them based on other features, such as their color. A snow goose is white. A Canada goose has a black head and neck, but a prominent white chin strap. A brant would lack that chin strap. But you could also use time of year. Canada geese might be visible in your area all year round. Snow geese only in the winter. Brants might be seen during migration, but you also might pay attention to habitat. They tend to be observed closer to salt water. There are so many different species of ducks that this could be intimidating to try to distinguish between them. However, you might use other features such as time of year. So if this is the middle of summer in the Northeast US, there are only a few species which would be found during that time of year. Many of the other species are only present during migration. Once you can narrow it down to say 3 ducks or so, now you're looking at, is there a white body, a green head, and a narrow orange bill, at least in the males? Is there a green head in a duck with a wide yellow bill? Is there a very intricate patterning on the head of a smaller duck, or a white ring around these ducks if it's a female or immature? These features now can help you identify this once you've narrowed it down to a small group. If it's during the fall or spring migration, this is exciting because now there might be other ducks that you might see. How could you distinguish between them? Well, here's one possible clue: their behavior. A narrow subset of ducks are diving ducks, where they can actually dive beneath the surface to hunt for their prey. If you see a duck diving, you might say, it's one of this subset. And so then you might look at, does it have a narrow bill? In which case it could be a common merganser or a hooded merganser. Is it smaller? In which case it might be a hooded merganser, a goldeneye, or a bufflehead. Does its tail feathers get held upright at an angle? So ruddy ducks or hooded mergansers, this is true of them. Do you see a group of these ducks which have a lot of black on them in the middle of a body of water? And are they very early in the migration season? This might be true of a ringneck duck. And so a number of the ducks are diving ducks, and splitting the group of all possible ducks into this smaller category could then help you identify it further. If the duck doesn't dive but rather dabbles on the surface, simply upending itself to get what it can reach close to the shore, this is then a dabbling duck. So once again, you have narrowed the field of possibilities. Hopefully you recognize, oh, mallards and wood ducks, they're common in my area all summer. I recognize those. Now I can, focus on the ones that are unusual to me. So if it's a larger duck with a brown head and long tail feathers, that is a pintail. Does it have a cinnamon colored head with a green stripe? Is it a darker duck looking like a mallard but a dark brown to black in color? That would be a black duck. Does it have a wide bill as a shoveler? Then smaller ducks would include the teal with that cinnamon head, or a widgeon with multiple colors on its head. Once again, the key was you narrowed it down and now had a smaller set of ducks to consider. So if you are trying to identify a species of waterfowl, you should approach it as a puzzle that has a number of clues for you. So what is the size and shape of the bird? How long is the neck? That could help you distinguish between swans, geese, and ducks. What time of year is it? Because if it's not migration season, your list of possible species is much smaller. What habitat are you seeing it in? How is it behaving? Is it diving under the surface? And then obviously you can look for distinguishing features, such as any, bright white spots or patterns on the head or long tail feathers, etc. And so hopefully this helps you with some strategies as you begin trying to identify more and more species of birds.